My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Veterans Memorial and Multicultural Histories Incorporated. And today is September the 14th, 2023. We are at Riviera Beach Preparatory Achievement Academy, and I have two of my students here, London and Aaliyah, okay, on this camera over here. All right, thank you. And Miss, what is your name?
Debra Tendrich.
Okay, Miss Tendrich. And what is your position in the community?
I am the founder of a nonprofit called Eat Better, Live Better, and I'm also a candidate for Florida House District 89.
Okay, how long have you been running your nonprofit?
I founded the organization back in 2016.
Why?
Because in 2013, I lost 70 pounds and reversed my daughter's medical conditions with food. So I developed a curriculum to teach kids how to eat healthy. And in 2020, when the pandemic took off, we actually developed a grocery assistance program to meet the food crisis that was happening in the community.
Okay, and how many years have you been doing this?
7? Well, since 2016.
How many children and families do you believe that you have served over this time period?
We fed over 200,000 families in Palm Beach County and surrounding areas.
Okay, and what pockets of the county do you consider to be in the most need?
Right now, it's hard to say one or two locations. There's actually over 80 food deserts throughout Palm Beach County, but right now with the rising costs of living, from property insurance to just the cost of a grocery bill right now, people who we never expected to need food support are asking for help. So it's not one community or the other. It's just from senior citizens to even teachers are walking through our doors asking for food support.
Where were you born, by the way?
I was born in California.
Okay, and how long have you lived in Florida?
Since 2012.
Mm-hmm. And again, I'm really back at the point of what has inspired you to do this nonprofit work?
My own transformation, and actually to take it back, the reason I have a big focus on quality of service for our families is because in 2012, when I moved from Atlanta, I left a domestic violence situation, and me and my daughter came here with just a suitcase. And I needed support from organizations like Dress for Success and from Jewish Family Services. And when we feed people, we want to feed with dignity. We don't want to have the concept of a calorie is a calorie. Just because somebody's hungry, they can get anything. If Dress for Success took the concept of calorie is a calorie as a shirt is just a shirt, I wouldn't have felt empowered wearing their clothing to my first job interview when I moved here from Atlanta. So because of that, we really want to make sure that we feed with dignity, make sure that the food quality is really, really high end, make sure that the families get food that supports their health. And we say we feed the hunger, not the disease. So that inspired me to not only promote health throughout the community, but also when I feed families, make sure that they get the food that they feel confident in, create generational health, and bring home to their children. Or when some senior comes to our doors at 80 years old for the first time, they don't feel bad about receiving our food support. They feel that, even though this is my first time in my entire life that I needed help, that I can do this, and it makes them feel better through the process of even asking for help.
Okay. It sounds like you work with underserved population.
Yes.
And so, what is your perspective on their quality of life? Are they people of color? Are they men, women, children? Do they have any learning disabilities? Challenges for education? What is the core of your population?
The answer is yes to all of that. Mm-hmm. We actually have a huge array of families and diverse families that come through our doors. They're all ages, they're all races, they're all sexes, they're single family, they're multi-generational families in one home. There's really no face to hunger right now. The face can be a teacher, a nurse, it could be someone who is just working at Publix as a cashier and they can't afford to make ends meet. So it just is very diverse right now. There's so many individuals that are just financially struggling, and the face of hunger isn't what people expect.
Okay. Regarding issues that directly affect women, I'm sure that you probably have had the experience of trying to provide services to single parent homes. Are the majority of them, I surmise, are the majority women? And as far as women's rights are concerned and what's going on in the atmosphere today, the political atmosphere in the country actually, the issue about women's rights and their bodies, what is your opinion?
Well, I do want to give a big kudos to women because they are the ones who are holding down the households, and for the most part, they're single women taking care of a family without additional support in many occasions. And as far as the women's rights, it's unfortunate that one day men and women had the same rights, and we wake up the next day and now women have less rights than men. I don't feel that it's appropriate for a doctor to be dictated their treatment by legislation, and politicians have no business to be in the doctor's office with the patient. Women are smart, they are strong and independent, and they can make decisions on their own without the interference of government.
Okay, I'm curious about, have you had any experiences where families or individuals have come to you, I'll call it on your circuit, and they've had issues where they were either racially profiled or, well, actually it's a double-edged sword, either racially profiled or possibly harassed due to their immigrant status?
Actually, we do work with one community where about 10% of the population has left because of this new legislation that has trickled down into the community here in Florida, actually across Florida. It's affecting a lot of people. Mixed families, when I say mixed families, it's a lot of families have someone who's undocumented and some that are documented living in the same household. It's actually been a frightening experience for a lot of individuals. We've seen people who are afraid to take their children to the hospital. We've seen children who are families who are afraid to have their kids go to school, who are even afraid just to go to the grocery store because of this new legislation. The issue is that this legislation tells people that it's not okay to support the immigrant population. It makes people feel unsafe with asking for help, with even just taking their children to the doctor. It's affecting the kids because a lot of these kids are citizens. A lot of these families are citizens, and when you make it seem like it's even hard to even ask for help, take your kids to the doctor, how do you even make an excuse for that? It's just not okay at all. You have to accept people. There's ways to do things in a bad way, and there's a human way to do it. And when you take the humanity out of how you treat people and how you create legislation to make people just scared to access basic needs, it's not okay.
Okay. What kind of feedback have you gotten from the population that you serve about the educational system here in Palm Beach County?
Well, obviously there are some new education standards that are not okay. The fact that they have been embedded into the new education standard that they say black people benefited from slavery has created a huge problem. Obviously, I actually spoke at the school board meeting to go against those standards, to oppose those standards. I have a daughter who's biracial, and my grandfather wouldn't even allow her in his home before she was even able to crawl because she was part black. I know that the ideology of racism is still in the community because I've seen it. I've had to fight it myself personally. I've been the victim. I have seen other people being victimized just for the color of their skin, and the fact that you can be okay with teaching misinformation to children to water down the impacts of slavery or racism or systemic racism changes the conversation. It's actually emboldened a lot of racist activities throughout the state, from anti-Semitism to attacking the LGBTQ community to even killing a group of black people in Jacksonville through gun violence and through hate crime. So when it comes to education, you really have to make sure, and include the good, the bad, and the ugly, because if you don't, you basically say it's okay. In Germany, Nazi Germany, I'm Jewish, when the Holocaust happened and Jews were killed when education was censored, when books were censored, when publications and communications were censored and people were scared to speak up. There's a lot of parallels with what's happening now in Florida to what happened in Nazi Germany. And what's interesting is in Germany, you actually have to teach the good, the bad, and ugly about the Holocaust so it doesn't happen again. And the whole point of teaching history accurately is to keep it from repeating itself. So, the teachers right now are scared to teach. They're scared to have honest conversations. They're scared to, we actually have a teacher shortage. My daughter's in school. She hasn't had one teacher for an entire month. And she has a substitute, and she's being taught by an app because they have a shortage of teachers. One of her classes was actually dissolved a month in because they needed to replace that teacher and remove her and move her to a different class. This is happening all over the county because we're losing our teachers. They're not paid enough. There's actually a lot of issues that come down and trickle down to the education system, and they're being attacked. Not only that, legislation is now asking for $8,000 of a voucher program to follow the students into private school, which actually takes money away from the public school. And what's so scary about that is that this money is being invested into private schools. However, there's no public input. So you're telling me public funded money is going in to fund private schools, but there's no ability for public input. They're not going to open their private schools for hurricane shelters like public schools will. When if you actually invested that same $8,000 per student into every child at the public school, you can actually transform these public schools into the quality of a private school and erase all the inequities throughout the county and in the education system.
Okay. I wanted to just take a moment and find out if either of my students had any questions for you. And while they're thinking about that, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your campaign? I believe you're running for office in the near future.
I am. I'm running for Florida House District 89. It runs from Hypoluxo to Southern Boulevard, and so Green Acres, West Palm, Lake Worth, Lake Clark Shores, Atlantis, a little bit of Lantana, goes east to Dixie and just west of Military. I'm running because the community asked me to. Okay. They feel that I could be a great bridge between a community and Tallahassee. I work with the community every single day, so I see how these policies trickle down and affect people in real life. Okay. There's no voice for these individuals a lot of times to reach out to their officials and feel that they're heard. Okay. They can reach out, but to actually feel heard is a different story. They feel that disconnected. There's really no one in legislation who works in the trenches day in and day out that can really identify with what people are going through. And I look forward to putting a human face on these issues because being a legislator is a big responsibility. You're making decisions that affect people's lives. And as a state legislator, whether you're in a big city or a small town with maybe 500 or 800 residents, it doesn't matter. Your legislation affects every Floridian. And if you don't have a good understanding or willing to put a human face onto these issues, you're going to make bad decisions. It's not about proving a point. It's not about being right. You really have to make legislation make sense for everyone and be able to receive this feedback, make yourself a trusted person in the community to know that you're going to be heard, and we're going to look into how this will affect every community and every group of demographics within the entire district and the state.
Okay, I've got a girl's question for you.
Okay.
And it has to do with the successes that you've had, the challenges that you've overcome, and especially since we are middle and high school, to share the message of what you believe has been what has been your motivation for success in the face of adversity, being a woman. And if you don't mind, I think it's important for these young ladies to know your age, if you don't mind to share that. But I want you to sort of compartmentalize the time when you feel like you initially felt like you were going to serve the community, and then you're up to this moment now where you're running for office for state legislature. So if you can share that in a bit of a, I don't want it to be too short or too long. I want it to be a nutshell. I'm just trying to set you up for it. to share that so they can start seeing how women become successful in a world that has been run and dominated by men.
So a lot of people will say that if you actually look at how things have turned into what they are today, women are taking over. You know, we have a women vice president, women CEOs, presidents of companies. We have elected officials that are women. So we are being recognized as leaders in the community. When I grew up, a lot of times, even now to this day, there's certain questions and feedback I get that would come to me as a woman that wouldn't come to a man, right? And when you look at that, I'm 37, by the way. So my daughter's 14. I am involved in so many community organizations, boards, committees, nonprofits, the education system, because I see how it all works together. And as a woman, the best I can do is be there for other women, empower women, and make sure that I lift you up. Just because I light your candle doesn't mean my flame goes out. It actually makes the room brighter, right? And I find that when change inspires change, the more change you create, the more change you inspire. So you can inspire change. You can be that ripple that seeps out into the entire lake and changes. So if you do something, people will see you. And what happens is I've had people watch me for years, and I don't even know they're watching me. And then they call me one day when they decide to take action. They say, you know, I've been watching you for 8 years, 10 years on social media, or, you know, I've been, you know, watching you or hearing about you, and because of you, I've been inspired to do this. When I lost the weight, I had all my patients call me and say, you know, I'm going to the gym now, I'm eating healthy, I'm cooking my food, I'm not going to fast food, but they see change. They believe it's okay, it can happen. So you have an opportunity to inspire. Women are inspiration. Women are our opportunities, because you've seen us come from not even being able to vote to being elected officials. So I guess my inspiration and my drive to go forward is not to sweat the small stuff. You can only control what you can control. So instead of focusing on the problem, stay solution focused. Identify what you can actually control. Focus on that, and then create a solution for it instead of dwelling on the problem, because if not, you're going to stay put. You're going to stay put in that same spot and dwell on it. So I just want to keep all women move forward. The entire group of women from years ago to now, we've progressed so far. We have to keep that going and just stay positive. Keep our eye on the prize, which is just making the community a better place, investing in yourself, your family, and your neighbors, and just make sure everything's okay.
Okay. Do either of you young ladies have any questions? Okay, is there anything else that you would like to share with us that you feel you should?
Yes. I truly believe that your age group, these two ladies that are with us are 14 years old. Right now, we need to get young people involved in politics and civic duty in your life, because when decisions are made from Tallahassee, from the federal government, they affect you. So if you don't stay proactive, meaning ahead of the problem, ahead of these legislators making decisions for you, and you're not part of the process, things are going to happen to you. So stay aware, start getting involved now, register to vote when you're 18. You know, you actually could register at 16, so it's already ready when you're 18. But just know what's happening. Politics are your life, right? Look what happened with Jim Crow laws. Jim Crow laws prevented so many people, and you can from accessing housing, from certain jobs, from all these things. So laws can actually prevent you from living a fulfilled life. But if you also take the step and initiative to be involved in the process and get the younger folks to actually realize politics are your life. It's your livelihood. It's your opportunity. And if you don't get involved now and start paying attention, speaking up on things that are important to you, or things that even are minimally important to you that could impact you in any way, clean air, clean water, education, freedom. These things are your life. Do not let your life get taken from you by not being part of the process. So I advise you, young folks, especially the young folks, get engaged now. Start understanding how you can be part of the process, even if you don't run for office. Understand what's happening, speak up at board meetings, get on boards, learn with the legislation, write your legislators. get to know who is making these decisions for you and start these conversations so you can understand what's happening. The last thing that we want is for the history to repeat itself and us to regress more than we are already, which is why I'm stepping up, which is why I'm excited to run, which is why I want to be part of the change and inspire. Especially, you all can be a part of my campaign. You all can be active in the community now and understand how to make these changes long-lasting in the community so you don't have to fight as hard for your rights.
One last question. What is your understanding of mental health services in Palm Beach County? Good, bad, indifferent? Not enough, too much?
There's a lot of factors with mental health. I think that it's actually one of my priorities with my campaign. I do think we have limited resources in the county. I do think that with a lot of this legislation, especially in the LGBTQ community, that it's actually increasing the need for mental health support in schools and through surrounding areas. I think that also there needs to be better training with law enforcement and leaders in the education system and even other professions to how to deal and identify with those who are experiencing mental health episodes or outbursts or dealing with mental health, how to appropriately handle them in a situation so they're not being treated like a criminal when it's actually something that is stemmed through mental health. I think that also there needs to be some more education in the community. There's a huge stigma of mental health within the communities. A lot of individuals actually mistake behavior issues and mental health with autism. And a lot of children are not diagnosed early enough to have proper intervention because it's neglected and not wanting to be brought forth, and is confused in a lot of communities, and a lot of children get diagnosed too late in life. I do want to create some more resources and support for not only mental health professionals, but those who work with mental health professionals or in a capacity that deal with the community to make sure people understand what mental health really is and how to support it in the right way without, sometimes people feel demonized for being, bipolar or having PTSD because people don't understand it. And I think that conversation needs to be had because it's okay to be not okay. And I think that's the conversation that needs to be had. And there's resources and support, and we just need to expand it and make those known so people know how to deal with it, know how to accept it, and know how to embrace it in a way that we can make positive change and provide the needed resources and support for it.
Okay. Last question. In light of what you just expressed as far as mental health is concerned, how do you feel about what's going on in the country relative to gun laws? Carry, conceal.
So I have a lot of history with gun violence personally. I had a student, Kyra England, who was shot and killed, and her mom, the shooter was actually sentenced to death through gun violence. She shot a child point blank. I was texting with some of the girls from the Women of Tomorrow group in Parkland when they had the Parkland shooting while they were in the closet. I've seen how guns can actually tear apart people's lives. I'm not saying people don't have the right to firearm. I'm just saying that it shouldn't be as easy as 1, 2, 3. When I go to drive a car, I have to go get a driver's license because they know this big 2-ton vehicle can kill someone.
Right.
Well, this little steel piece of armor can kill someone too, so there should be a licensing, there should be a training to go along with it, just like a driver's license. We should make sure that, of course, I'm a domestic violence victim. I know how a lot of times the second a woman puts a restraining order or seeks out the police, they're actually at risk of being shot and killed. So someone in a domestic violence situation shouldn't have access to a gun within 24 hours, so quickly. So I think that there's a lot of not to take away people's rights for firearm, but people should know that there's proper training involved, and if they don't think the training is good enough, improve it, right? You don't take it away. You just need to make sure that there's some parameters and guardrails to make sure people are safe, and people who have the firearms. Imagine if just buy a gun, you're a first-time gun owner, and you are put in a situation where you need to use it. What are the chances are that you would be confident enough to use it properly, that you wouldn't be scared or have the gun taken from you and used against you? there's so many situations where that's actually happened because you don't have proper training or you don't even know how to use it properly. So I just feel that those guardrails are put in place for a reason, and to remove them, it doesn't make sense. And if someone wants a gun bad enough, they'd be willing to go through those hoops because they know that they are taking a huge responsibility with the potential of fatality in their hands with that firearm.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to come in and share this with our students. That was a really great interview, and I want to thank you for your service also, a nonprofit, and also I'm sure that we're in agreement here that we wish you all of the luck running your campaign and winning that legislative seat. Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
hope you win.
Thank you.